Let's jump right into this. Today, we're unraveling a completely fascinating, dark, and twisting tabletop RPG recap that perfectly shows how a seemingly mundane task can just spiral into an absolute occult nightmare. We're breaking down session 21 of this incredible vampire chronicle, and I've got to tell you, the sheer level of mystery and suspense generated here, it's masterclass level storytelling. I'm not going to spoil the big surprise just yet, but let's just say you're going to want to pay really close attention to every little detail. So this session literally kicks off with this incredibly eerie traditional song just echoing in the background. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. Setting the stage with music like this immediately immerses us in this thick, gothic, foreboding atmosphere. It's Southern Gothic horror at its absolute finest, you know? It tells the players, and us, that tonight's story is going to be heavily focused on death, what lies beneath the earth, and things that simply refuse to stay buried. Okay, let's dive into the inciting incident here. Because what could possibly draw four heavily armed vampires to an airport cemetery in the dead of night? Let's look at exactly how this all started. The coterie, that's Gabriel, Eric, Frost, and Alex, they all wake up to a very strange text message. Chapter 1. A Summons to the Cemetery. So the coterie rises from their day sleep, going about their usual, macabre routines, and suddenly their phones buzz. It's a mysterious text from an unknown number, and it contains nothing but a single address. No context, no signature, nothing. And when they look it up, yep, it's a cemetery located right next to the local airport. Now, because they have absolutely no idea who texted them, the group's sheer paranoia completely takes over, and they pack an absolute arsenal. I mean, we're talking a shotgun, a rifle, a machete literally strapped to a leg, a revolver, and a bayonet. They're showing up to a simple text message ready to fight a small war. It perfectly captures that classic tabletop RPG player mentality, just expecting a deadly trap at every single turn. When they finally roll up to the cemetery, they naturally flip on their supernatural senses. And, sure enough, there are actual ghosts wandering around the headstones. This prompts this fantastic moment of highly practical combat logic from Alex. She points out that physical threats, even supernatural ones like vampires, can be dealt with using physical violence. But ghosts? That's an entirely different, untouchable problem. You can't exactly punch a ghost. So this puts the whole group instantly on edge. Chapter 2. The Nosferatu's Delivery Job. Thankfully, it's not an ambush, after all. A car pulls up and out steps Belle. She's a contact from the notoriously secretive and hideous Nosferatu clan. And let me tell you, she is incredibly amused. She takes one look at Gabriel's machete and the group's massive stockpile of firearms, and just flat out tells them they are vastly overarmed for what she actually needs. It's a great little moment of tension relief. Belle's instructions are deceptively simple. Step 1, walk into a very small, somewhat cheap-looking mausoleum. Step 2, grab a specific 10-inch ornate wooden box hidden right under a floor marker. And Step 3, drive it out to a guy named Steven at a Curiosities Emporium. The box is small. It only weighs about 15 pounds. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right? But before they hit the road, we really have to talk about how the game's mechanics drive the narrative here. Eric is sitting at Hunger 3, which, if you know the system, is dangerously high. He absolutely cannot risk going on a mysterious rural road trip while starving. So he takes a grumpy little detour to a hospital to steal some blood bags. Well, he critically fails his lockpicking and stealth attempt, gets completely frustrated, and just marches back to the car. It's such a crucial reminder that in this world, the beast and the constant need to feed will always dictate the pacing of the story. Moving right along to Chapter 3, Steven's Oddity Shop. After Eric successfully feeds somewhere else, the group regroups and drives about 45 minutes west of Birmingham. They're heading out into the rural outskirts toward Tuscaloosa. And they finally arrive at this completely bizarre 24-hour oddity shop. Yes, you heard that right. An oddity shop open in the middle of the night, smack in the middle of nowhere. And this location brilliantly illustrates the bizarre duality of the occult world. The front of Steven's shop is just organized chaos. You've got dozens of taxidermy gator heads, bizarre dioramas, and literally a taxidermy rat on a stripper pole. But then Steven takes them to the back room, and it is pristine. It is an OCD-level clean, heavily organized occult workspace. This visual contrast instantly tells us that Steven isn't just some quirky shopkeeper. The guy is a serious practitioner of the dark arts. So Steven takes the wooden box and places it on his pristine table. He locates the sliding panel. The coterie, who, by the way, strictly followed their orders not to peek inside, are just watching in total suspense. Let's pause for a second. What do you actually think is inside a 15-pound wooden box dug out of a graveyard by an Osferatu and handed over to an occultist? Chapter 4, The Talking Head Revealed. Stephen slides the panel open, and right away he looks visibly confused. He tells the coterie he was expecting the remains of his old mentor, a 20-year-old, fully decayed skull to use in his necromancy. But instead, he pulls out a fresh, completely undecayed, fleshy human head. There is absolutely no rot, zero decay. As if that isn't shocking enough, Alex is leaning in close to investigate the head alongside her pigeon familiar, and she notices something literally impossible. The head's eyes shift. They look at Stephen, and then they look right at Alex. And then, completely breaking the silence of the room, the head speaks, with a French accent. And just like that, the entire genre of tonight's mission completely shifts from a simple courier job to a massive, blown-out occult mystery. The head introduces himself as Goran, and this revelation absolutely stuns the characters, because Goran is a Cappadocian. For those who might need a refresher, the Cappadocians are this ancient clan of vampires deeply obsessed with death. But the kicker is, they were supposedly driven to complete extinction centuries ago. They were betrayed and absorbed by the Giovanni family, who eventually became the Hecata. So finding a Cappadocian today, it is literally like finding a living dinosaur. But wait, Goran's story gets even crazier. He explains he met his final death way back in 1993. And how did it happen? He got run down by a pack of lupines. Let's quickly define this for context. Lupines are werewolves. In this universe, they are fierce, incredibly violent shapeshifters who view vampires as basically unnatural leeches. They aggressively guard the rural wilderness, which is exactly why vampires almost never leave the safety of the concrete cities. Chapter 5, Tracking the Missing Body. So, the most crucial point here is that Goran is just a head without a body. And bizarrely, he tells the group he is actually experiencing phantom limb pain. Like, he can literally feel someone poking his arm with a needle somewhere out there. Goran desperately wants his body back so he can be fully reconstituted, and he asks our heavily armed coterie to help him track it down. Now, this creates a massive, central mystery for the whole group. Think about it. Goran died a violent death 20 years ago. By all laws of nature and the occult, his head should be a dusty old skull. Yet today, he is sitting there in a fresh, fleshy, completely reanimated state, with no signs of decay, and he is perfectly aware of his surroundings. Who or what has the immense power to reanimate an extinct vampire from 20 years ago? And more importantly, for what purpose? Despite really wanting his body back, Goran issues a very stark warning to the coterie. He says, "I got run down by a gang of lupines. If you ever meet them, run." This is absolutely not a joke. He's emphasizing to our brave, well-armed vampires that those shotguns and machetes are going to be practically useless if a pack of werewolves descends on them out in the woods. But hey, before they can run away, they actually have to find the body first. And here is where the game mechanics shine once again. Frost steps up and utilizes his Banu Hakim blood sorcery, specifically a really cool ritual called Scour Secrets. He extracts a little bit of Goran's fresh blood, mixes it with his own, and literally spills it over a physical map of Alabama. The blood then supernaturally moves, dragging itself across the paper until it pools right over their target location. It's basically a magical GPS. Chapter 6, Preparing for the Lupins. Frost's blood magic reveals that Goran's missing body is located in a city called Gadsden. It's out in the middle of nowhere, it's heavily isolated, and it is perfectly situated in prime werewolf territory. This massive revelation sets up the terrifying final act of the session, officially transitioning our coterie from simple delivery drivers into a full-blown recovery team venturing deep behind enemy lines. So, let's break down the parameters of this newly acquired mission. The objective? Retrieve Goran's missing body. The location? The rural isolation of Gadsden. The danger level? Absolutely extreme, as they will be operating deep within Lupin territory. But in exchange for risking their undead lives, Stephen the Occultist promises them a major unspecified favor. And despite Goran's very explicit, utterly terrifying warning to just run if they see a werewolf, the coterie accepts the job. In a moment of incredible, reckless bravery, or, honestly, perhaps utter foolishness,
One of them remarks, "I doubt we're going to have much problems if we find lupines. We just need to be faster than them." It is just a spectacular display of that classic overconfidence that top table players are so famous for. But there's a huge logistical catch. Gadsden is 75 minutes away from their current location. With the night rapidly ticking away, they realize that driving an hour and 15 minutes into hostile werewolf territory, finding a hidden body, and then driving all the way back before the sun rises, that is just tactical suicide. So, they are forced to delay this incredibly dangerous road trip until the following night. Which leaves us with this massive cliffhanger. The body is sitting out there in hostile werewolf territory right now. The Coterie certainly has the firepower, but do they actually have the speed and the stealth required to pull this off? Can they retrieve the body of an extinct vampire before the lupines tear them limb from limb? We're all just going to have to wait for the next session to find out. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep your fangs sharp.